So when you say enough, in what context specifically? Because it's a list of right now features that you're delivering. So I just want to know which piece of that you want coaching on specifically.
Sure. Okay. So I didn't think that it would be a viable course because it's a 15-minute daily practice. So really how to, you can teach people how to do it and then what? So when I heard the term healing package, I was like, oh, okay, this kind of fits into what it is. So a 30-day sort of challenge or course or transformation where we're committing to do it every single day. And then there's 3 days a week. There's different time options where people can drop in and we can all do it together on Zoom.
Mhm.
And then
So
daily
what
text
I'm
messages.
noticing is we're falling a little down the how hole, you know. So when you asking this question, I always recommend going back to the what and the why, which is the mission and the future self.
Mhm.
Because how many of you that there are lots of 15-minute practices that would change your life if you would only do them and commit to them? Yes, let me know in the chat if that's a yes, right?
Mhm.
Absolutely. So I guess the question is, how do you position this 15-minute practice less than is it viable? And is it something that people are likely to be able to figure out how to do on their own and be able to do? Or are you bringing something special to it that, either it's the community, it's the accountability, it's the a technique? Is there something that you're adding to it that would make it like not easily attainable for people, or just by doing it in group, it's 10 times more enjoyable or faster to get the result or more assured, right?
Right. Sorry, just an alarm go off. This is like the day for everything to pop up and go wrong. It really reminds me of what you were saying about the thermostat. Like this is a way for people to change their thermostat, not just, will it to happen, but really physically change it. So yeah, I'm definitely working on, still in my mind, who is this for? Like it originally started with working moms to be able to leave work at work and kids at home and change their energy. But it's really anybody who's living with intention. And what problem do I solve? I think it's when it ultimately comes down to living with intention and not and wanting to be present for your life and for your children. Does
Mhm.
that make sense?
Yeah. So, well, tell me about this three-part practice a little bit. I know you said celebration, gratitude, and one other thing,
Right.
breathing.
Yes. So it starts out with priming, which is I think something that Tony Robbins came up with.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then a gratitude practice. And it's, a couple minutes like meditation, or you can just really at the basics of it, you just say, I'm grateful for, like, over and over again. And then celebration, it's like either laughter yoga or um, dancing or yelling at the top of your lungs or cheering the way you
Yeah.
would a cheer on your favorite team at a stadium.
Okay.
So
So,
people can do it on their own. Um, I've been told that I have really great energy. So, and I'm kind of quirky. Like sometimes I wear a pink wig. So, like, we can do it all together. I think people like the community. There would be a Facebook community as well. So, I wanted to kind of get your feedback on, is there anything else I should add to that? Or, um,
yeah. Well, I mean, I think that whereas it is hard, obviously, with people in so many different time zones, but I think if you were to actually do it, like 15 minutes live streamed on Zoom or something, that people could join and do it together, I think that that would be a big thing. And this idea of probably pre-qualifying, like how you start your day is, very often how you'll end it. Or all the research shows that the first hour of your day is the most, or might not want to say that because it might not be the first hour for everyone, but research shows that how you start your day defines how the rest of the day go. Yet most people begin their day by default and find, changing their morning routine to be, incredibly challenging to do on their own. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to, is to co-create your own custom 15 minutes of joy practice with a group of, in community, with a group of women committed to, live, feeling their best every day, while being fully present for their families, and, whatever it happens to be. It might be something like that, where it's like a 30 days to 30 days to feeling how you want to ultimately kind of practice. Like, I think there's a way for you to frame it. It probably isn't going to be a high ticket thing, but it might just be something like like a $97 or $197 or something like that, but that they're able to be in this community, or even say it takes 30 days to form a new habit, whatever that research is. So we're going to do this long enough that we form a habit around it, you co-create it, but that it's really about redefining how you feel every day, right? Especially if you're a mom, you feel like you've lost presence, you're neither here nor there, going through the motions every day, you've got a lot that you've got going on, you don't see, anything less, but that you could be showing up more powerfully for yourself and for the people you love, right? I think if you situate it like that, I think, a community that would come together and do this, probably something that started like, in January, and that's the time where people want to develop new habits, that started very early at the beginning of January and went through. Could work.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
So tell me about the soul connection activation, where it's essentially helping people tune into their inner guidance.
Yes, that's the program.
Okay. So, so how do you help them do that? So what does the infinity mean?
Infinity is the name that I gave to the program, but it's actually 6 pillars. So the basic of the program is 6 pillars to connect with the soul.
Okay. So I think that maybe I wouldn't necessarily use the word infinity there in the mission statement, because I think it's like your mission is to discover and integrate infinity. It's like, huh? You know what I mean? Right? A little bit. Right? So, because it's just sort of like, okay, how is that even possible kind of thing? So I think it's more along the lines of your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to discover, 6 ways to activate your own internal inner guidance system and connect deeply with your soul's desires, so you can get crystal clarity, on what you really want at the deepest possible in every area of your life, and how to get there, right? Kind of thing. So I think something more like that would be a little bit clearer.
Okay, perfect.
Feedback does not mean failure, and it does not mean impossibility. Now, if you have sent out 20, 30, 40, 50 messages and you haven't gotten any response, now the question is to start getting curious. I wonder why I haven't gotten a response. It could be, you sent it at a time where people weren't paying attention, and you could resend the note. Or, hey, just want to make sure you saw this, right? It could also mean that the way that you were coming across in the note, whether it was the actual words you said or the tone and spirit behind what you said, wasn't really creating the impression that you wanted to create. Does that make sense? Let me actually just share a little thing that happened to me today to just prove this point. So I've been working with the different teams here at Live Your Message to actually create, just a second, from support. Let me find this email, to bring them up to speed on the brand voice. And it's tricky. So, for example, with the support team, and I'm going to just figure out for my sent mailbox right here. Just a second. Let me see if I can open this up. With the support team, they might be getting hundreds of emails a day. And so they want to, and I'm going to just hide my feedback to them back, because I don't want to, look like it's any kind of criticism there. But, their goal is to kind of streamline the process so they can support people as quickly as possible. But that's not the same goal of someone sending a message to support. Does that make sense? For someone who's sending a message to support, they're having a challenge or they're interested in something and they want to get a fast response. So what I was noticing in the feedback that I sent over this morning is that they were in the message on the help desk was the perspective of the support department, which is what they needed the customer to do in order to be able to support them. However, when you're receiving that kind of message, which is their agenda versus, say like the person writing in, that person's agenda, it doesn't feel aligned. It doesn't feel like a match. And so I'm trying to support everyone on the team to actually create what I call a customer first, tone and a customer first set of messaging. So rather than writing from our perspective of what we want this person to do, to write from the perspective of, responding to why they wrote in to begin with, right? So I'm just going to read this message and share why this kind of ruffled my feathers when I read it this morning. And because this is an example of, of what you may be doing as well. Does that make sense? You're writing the perspective from what you want that person to do, how you want them to behave, and how you want them to respond versus meeting them where they're at every single, right? Versus meeting them where they're at in that particular moment, which could be in the holidays, it could be something else. So let me go ahead and send this to you because that is really the basis of influence. And influence is being able to really put yourself in somebody else's shoes and to take on their perspective. It's like this kind of magic act. Does that make sense? Of going from your perspective of what you want to their perspective of what they want and understanding how do you kind of meet at the intersection of these two things. So I'm going to share this with you just as an example. All right. And then we can talk about what do you see that isn't working here? So I just support, some customer wrote to me, so I CC'd the customer support team on their response. And I wrote, it says, "Hi, Marisa Murgatroyd. First, thanks for your email. Our first response time is up to 24 hours average. However, please note that as Live Your Message was closed December 20 to 31, 2021, you may experience extended wait times for a reply from the team while we work to catch up. If you have emailed us and have not received a reply, please accept." All right, hold on a second. Let me mute the line. There it goes. Good. If you have emailed us and have not received a reply, please accept our apologies. The team will be in touch just as soon as they can. You can help us help you by sending all of your replies about your request in the same email thread. Sending a new email about the same issue creates separate tickets that may or may not be answered by the same agent. Please also be sure to check your spam and junk folders for missed messages from our team. Lastly, don't forget to check Facebook often for important updates about your program. We thank you in advance for your patience. Happy New Year. May it bring abundant opportunities for gratitude and celebration for you. So when I read this, I felt that the message, the tone and spirit of the message was like, stop bothering us. Does that make sense? Like it's subtle, but that's what I felt in this message, right? It's kind of like, it's instructional, but it's also what I call transactional. So it's like, okay, you just did something and now we do something and we're in this transactional game. And for me, that's a zero-sum game. It's not relational. It's not connection-based. Yeah, Esther says, don't slam us with your stuff, right? Sending on a wild goose chase. And, I read this and I've actually given this feedback for about 3 or 4 months and it hasn't been corrected because I feel like the support team, they might be overwhelmed and I understand their perspective. Does that make sense? They're getting a lot of messages. They want to keep it under control, but this is actually compounding the issue. When people don't feel seen or heard or understood, they're actually going to start reaching out more. Does that make sense? So Joel says, I received this message and didn't take it personal. Marianne says it was a little robot-y. Melanie said, I received that same message, but I felt it was more positive than that. Reverend Michael Zacharin says, it did stop me. Linda said, got that email this morning too much when I just had a simple request. Garetta said, same here, felt it was okay. And Dr. David says, it is a holiday. Yes, but here's the thing, is that, what I want to do is this is moment 1 of day 1 of someone getting a response from us, right? Elizabeth says it's not personal and didn't get anywhere. So this could still be rephrased. Every single opportunity, every single touch point is a moment of transformation, right? Raphael says it does not portray the warmth that you have. So all of this thing. And so if someone just wrote in, it means that they're actively engaged with us as a company. And that's precious. So shifting that even 20% to really speak to that moment and to that situation, even if some of that other stuff was in there, could, make a big difference in terms of none of you though were like, well, based on this interaction, I just felt so much better about Live Your Message as a company and more inspired to be me in the world, right? So we lost this opportunity of interaction. So if instead we said, hi, I'm Marisa, happy holidays and thanks so much for your message. We can't wait to get back to you and support you And however, you need support. Just a few things to be aware of, we are on holiday right now. And just like I'm hoping you have some quality time with your family, we're trying to do the same over here. I mean, you see, it's just a subtle difference from going from my agenda to theirs. It's very, very subtle, but the energetic is qualitatively different and gets a different response from people. And it feels like a real person talking to a real person. However, what you just saw is super common. And often it's the difference between something that gets a response and something that doesn't, something that creates warmth and connection and something that doesn't. And I believe that every message is an opportunity to create that warmth and connection. I would probably, for the pre-qualifying statement, which is, are you an Australian arts therapist in private practice who is, boom,
who is looking to scale your private practice or is looking to start a private practice?
Yeah, you could say who's looking to start or scale a private practice, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
Your mission.
Yeah.
So, your mission is to create a sustainable and profitable private practice. I think it gets a little bit into the how whole in terms of decreasing the overwhelm of disorganization by setting business goals for your practice to support. So what specifically do you help them with?
Well, usually it's about scaling their private practice. So wherever they are, I always increases, their revenue streams, uncover and kind of get them to move beyond limiting belief systems, particularly around money and service, create more profit.
So wait, what was the first one? Profit, limiting beliefs, and the first piece.
About like increasing their revenue streams. So instead of just thinking this is the only way that I can get money into the business, looking at different revenue streams, that would suit them.
All right. So how many revenue streams might they end up? Because this is a big program. Is this a 6-week program? It seems like it's.
Well, I guess that's what I'm pivoting, Marisa. Originally, it was just a 6-week program for counselors or arts therapists now to kind of create a one-page business plan that would help them kind of start their private practice and with referrals and everything. And now I'm pivoting because somebody asked me to do I do one-to-one? And that's traditionally what I've been doing. But before I was doing clinical supervision and business skills at the same time. And I want to kind of separate those two and do supervision, clinical supervision separate to business skills. Did I answer that question?
So what is it's just a long-term, is it a one-on-one, one to few, one to many? And is it a long program or a short program?
Well, I don't really know is my answer. I guess I spoke to Bill Barron this morning and he said you could do this as a 12-month program and do like a
it feels
monthly...
like a really long like the way that it's set up, it feels like a very long program.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But of course, if it's a 12-month program, would it be a one-to-one program? Because you're getting a whole group of students through, especially if they have to follow at the same time. You'd have to kind of have a critical mass to make that work.
Yeah.
So honestly, it's a little hard to consult on your mission statement without is it a 12-month? Is it a 6-week? Is it but I think this idea of the revenue streams is really useful. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to create, most arts therapists struggle because they have only one way to get clients and make money. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to create 3 to 6, sustainable revenue streams in your business so you can, take your revenue to 6 figures or more. You know what I mean? So you have, the capacity to take, you don't have to say promise that they'll get to 6 figures, but like the capacity to, or something like that. So like that, I think is really interesting.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Because that's focused specifically on, okay, you're going to have multiple revenue streams.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's probably their predicament, is that they only have one revenue stream, and if anything happens to that one revenue stream, they lose their income overnight.
But I think a whole
Yes.
focus thing would be on, is to create multiple revenue streams.
Yeah.
Like first identify them and then start to build them out. I think that's a really strong promise.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Sure. What's different about your product? Because the thing is though, when you're in an established niche, you are up against other people, but you want to innovate, but you also want to like people to know what it is that you do.
Yeah, my basic thing is I can actually tell people how to deal with their own pain. And there's like in the computer area, there's only 5 things. There's the keyboard tray, monitor, chair, mouse, 6 things, and the wastebasket. The wastebasket is important because it's always in the footwell. And you got to turn your knees sideways. And so if you do that long enough, you're going to get back pain. And, along with all your lunch and your gym clothes and all of that. So most ergonomists, most what I call voodoo ergonomists, they say buy an ergonomic keyboard and that's going to fix your pain. And that's not true. You could, I have a chapter in one of my books that says there's no such thing as an ergonomic anything. I could give you the best ergonomic tool in the world. If you use it wrong, you could get worse. So the word ergonomics doesn't show up in any of my writings, any of my reports, or in my books, except maybe to describe it. So there's no such thing as an ergonomic anything. And most books, like what you just mentioned, say, oh, these are ergonomic things. And that's totally incorrect. So what I can do is take the variables in a computer workstation. And if there's 6 things, there's about 4 different variables on each one. 6 times 4 is 24, 24 factorial, something like 200,000 different combinations of how to fix something like de Quervain's disease. And I can tell each person through a questionnaire and a body map and all of that, and on a 2-hour FaceTime or Zoom, like what I see you do, I could get them to fix with maybe office hours after that, 2 sessions of 2-hour office hours. And I know I can fix them. I've done that all my life. I've done that for 40 years. So it's very easy for me. So that's what I'm doing. And I'm trying to get my 4 words into really saying something. So maybe you're right. Just add a subtitle to that and just put that out.
Yeah, you could just be like overcoming your computer pain or eliminating computer pain, working comfort for, working comfort for as long as you want kind of thing, or work. So you could say something like that.
I don't do comfort. I do pain elimination. Comfort is subjective.
I know, but you already said pain. So you want to say something different. Does that make sense? Work for 8 hours. Like you could repeat the word pain, but usually in your subtitle, you want to say something else. Like you want to not just say the same word over and over again.
Yeah. Well, the people I see are like computer programmers, and they're working 12, 14, 16 hours a day. They got no time for a workshop. They got no time to sleep. That's what their big complaint is.
Well, so I think a lot of people who are working that many hours, if they're in physical pain, they would seek out a solution.
Not always. They're just going to work until they.
Of course, not always, but they're not your customers. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so actually, they are, because I can beat them.
But what I'm saying, your customers are the ones who are willing to stop and do something about it, because you can never serve 100% of the people who need what you do.
Well, with your tutelage, I can get by. That's why I'm looking for those 4 magic words: overcoming your computer pain or getting rid of it. So it says it right away without having them to think. And maybe that's what I'm trying too hard to do.
I mean, I try to get it to 3 words, like overcoming computer pain, eliminating computer pain, deleting computer pain, stopping computer pain. I would, right? So just 3 words is better than 4 words. So
yeah, that's true. Great. Okay, just take away just overcoming computer pain, period. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Oh, crush your physical pain. I got that from Glenna. Great, Glenna, thanks. Crush your pain.
Yeah. Right. So just a word like that could work.
Okay.
I think that kind of, and then just having a nice subtitle, and I think that'll do it. Yeah. Work pain-free for as long as you want. You know what I mean? Kind of, however you want to say it as a subtitle, and I think you're good to go.
Okay. Well, you've given me plenty to think about, and so is everybody on the chat. So thanks, everybody.
I think I'd go back to the mission, because it's not 100% clear, which is, how do you know when your to-do list is under control?
I think basically when you can think of your to-do list as a centering tool as opposed to the thing that's trying to kill you.
Yeah. Okay. But is that really like could someone take a picture of that?
I know I don't really know what the picture worthy outcome would be for any of it. I mean, it's just peacefulness and, feeling centered.
Well, is it about that, or, is that, because that seems like it's the back door, like the back door result, but what are they coming to you for? Do they feel like, do they feel like their lives are in chaos? Do they feel like
they feel like they're burnt out because they just have way too much to do, not enough time in the day? And
so how are you solving that exactly?
I mean, generally with mindfulness. So finding mindful ways to pick and choose what they're saying yes to, just kind of mindful in all the different arenas.
Okay. And you help them with that just one-on-one, privately?
Yeah.
Okay. So just trying to think about how this is, do you also help them create systems, like personal systems for really managing their lives, or?
Yes. And finding systems that work for them, because, I've worked with a lot of people that it's like, oh, well, so-and-so told me this works great for them. And then they just are like, so I'm going to make this work for me. And my mind is like, well, but if it's not going to work for you, ditch it and find what is going to work for you, because you're wasting time trying to make something work that's never going to work.
Okay. So like the outcome would be what? Do they regain, say, 2 hours, like an hour a day of their time, So for example, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to implement the time, energy, and priority management systems that you need to reclaim an hour a day of your time while getting all your important things done each day. Like that would be an example of where you could actually see that.
Right.
Would you be able to deliver on something like that?
I think if I figure out what I worry about the time quantity, I think.
Well, you might be able to do that by helping people say no to certain things and take some things off of their to-do list.
Yes, absolutely. Or even just prioritize.
Free up, regain, an hour a day to, spend on, rejuvenating or, tank filling activities, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, you're kind of helping them reprioritize ultimately, which is what it sounds like you're doing.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I think if you led with something like that, it actually sounds much more interesting. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to create the custom time, energy, and priority management systems, that work for you in the way, that work specifically for you. So you can reclaim an hour every single day to spend on things that just bring you joy, that refill your tanks, so you can feel better at the end of every single day while still getting all your top priorities done, So, I mean, I think you could probably design something around that. And if you have something that's clear and focused like that, I think it's much more appealing. Along the way, you give them ways to fill that extra hour a day with, say, some mindfulness techniques or things like that. You help them craft what they're going to do with that extra time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I have stuff to work on. I think when I came with the question, it was mainly just like, is there any difference to how to build this if you're mainly focusing on one-to-one coaching? Because I knew I was kind of a mess with the rest of it.
Well, you're just figuring out, well, what are the buckets? So if it's like a 3-month thing, are there 6 main areas that you focus on, and you focus on one every 2 weeks? So it's the same.
Figure that out.
I'm just giving you an example. So it's the same approach. You're just thinking about what are the big buckets, and then what are the steps within each bucket. So whether you call them modules and sessions or you call them something else, it's just a way of looking at, well, what are the main steps of your process, and then what are the smaller steps within it?
Right. Yeah, which I have to figure out. So, but I will.
Yeah. And it can be really simple, right? Yeah. Really simple. Like, step one could be defining your priorities,
Yeah.
Step two could be something like defining and resetting your priorities,
Yeah.
Like step two could be about like, and that part of that is like what to say no to.
Right.
Step two could be like discovering the things that give you energy and the things that take it away.
Yes.
Step three could be, implementing a self-care practice to fuel you so you can get more time done. Step four could be like understanding your natural rhythms. I'm just giving you examples. Like, what I'm hearing too, just overall today, is that I think that everyone's making this harder than it needs to be, and overthinking.
I'm sure.
Bit, right? It's actually, when you think about something, a lot of times it's kind of straightforward in terms of what the actual steps and the buckets are.
Yeah. I just need to go back to my brainstorming list and see if I can. I think I just haven't ever honed it. I just keep thinking of more things.
Right. Well, that process of that 7-step product brainstorming process is all about, killing your darlings, creating, buckets, organizing ideas and things like that.
Yes.
So someone said something I saw earlier, just along this line of overthinking. Someone said, working 10 to 12 hours in the technology load in module 3 is gigantic. There's no tech requirements in module 3. So I'm actually curious where this is coming from. So what I'm hearing is it feels like, we do this Get It Done Fridays, but it's 100% optional. Everything on Get It Done Fridays is just optional stuff. So if you're in that mode where you're spending 10 to 12 hours a day and the technology is overwhelming, you have no tech skills, don't use any technology.
Yeah.
Like I actually had this idea of it's minimum viable product, minimum viable technology plus minimum viable marketing equals minimum viable launch, MVP launch. So I think some of these ideas are maybe experiencing scope creep and going beyond the scope of this idea of a minimum viable mindset. So I go back to that minimum viable mindset commitment and say, well, do I actually need any or all of this technology on this version of the product? And 9 times out of 10, the answer is no.